let's go ahead and get started and talk about the long title of our program, Enhancing Visibility of Your Research Profile Through Faculty Domains. So my name is Andy Rush. I work in CERT, and I am a course media developer. As I've been taught as an instructional technologist to generally always start with a demo, I'm going to jump right in. So I'm going to share my screen. And what we'll do is we'll start with the Faculty Domains homepage. And the way that we kind of approach this is it's a three-step process, but there's multiple steps within those steps. But essentially what you do is you sign up for your space. So Faculty Domains is essentially a web server. We'll talk a little bit about the technologies, but it's a web server that faculty are allowed to kind of carve out their own space to do web pages, and web pages with a lot of functionality and capabilities. So after you sign up, here's sign up. After you sign up, you build. So in other words, on your website, you'll add your content, your images, videos, other web elements to create your pages. And then you're going to publish them. So when we talk about building, what does that mean? Essentially, what you're going to do is you're going to figure out which tool you're going to use online. So usually what we're talking about is WordPress, but it can also be Omeka. You're going to either dip your toes into configuring your website with themes and other stylistic elements, or you can have us in CERT help you with that, and then you just worry about your content. And then there's also plugin functionality that can add many more capabilities to this, and we'll demonstrate some of that as we go along. Okay. So after you build your pages and after you've established your domain, which is part of the publishing process, and we talk about what a domain is if you really want to get into the details of that. But essentially what we do once you've got your site set up, you're going to publish in WordPress or other tools, and then you're going to expose your work to the world. One of the people that we like to give as an example is David Courtwright, who is an English professor. Let's do a search for David in Google. And you get some images up at the top here of David, and there's a little about page that talks about him. One thing that I hope that you'll notice up at the top here, the first link is David T. Courtwright at the University of North Florida. And if you look really closely, it is actually his site on Domains. So if we click through to that, you will see his site. And he talks about his latest book is called The Age of Addiction, and he talks about addiction and that kind of thing. So this is the kind of website that folks should be looking to put together. And again, we'll give more examples of the types of sites that you can build. And we'll talk more about David and where he fits into this big picture as we move along. So the demo part of this is I'm going to click on the sign up button or sign in button. But essentially what will happen next is if you don't have an account, you'll be asked to create a space. If you do have an account, you won't see this page necessarily, but what you'll see is the C panel. And you see all these little icons here, and there's probably a few of them that can go away and no one would ever miss them. But essentially what we have are applications that we can install: WordPress, Omeka, Scalar. What I'm going to do is just go through the process of creating a website. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. I'll be moving fast through it, but you'll see the basic, from start to finish. So we've signed in, we've got our domain. We're going to go and we're going to now install WordPress, for example. So I'll click on the WordPress application installer, and I'll click install this application. And let's just say I want to create a blog for my faculty. So I'll call it bloggity blog, and just scroll down. I've got the ability to choose a template, and we'll get more into this when you actually contact us when you have questions. But we've got a few different templates that you can use. I'm going to use this one called UNF Faculty Template. Scroll down here. For right now, I'm not going to worry about this administrator stuff, but it is important because it's important to realize that we use the UNF credential system to get into this space, but a WordPress site would be separate, would have a separate username and password that actually gets taken care of if you go into the single sign-on route. But you could, if the UNF credential system was down, you could still get into your WordPress website because it's hosted someplace other than the UNF systems. Anyway, let's just keep going down through and click on install. It shouldn't take too long to go through this process. You'll see the site kind of guide you through what it's doing. The way that WordPress works is it builds a structure with also databases. So it's not only the software itself, but it uses databases to kind of keep track of everything there. It makes for a dynamic website, and WordPress is used by 40% of all the popular websites that are out there in the world. So it's by far a standard that's used out there, and it's why we go with it. So we've completed the installation. You'll be presented with 3 links once you've got your site installed. The top one is the web address of the site. The second address is the admin interface. So if I click on that admin interface, you'll see the WordPress dashboard appear. Welcome to WordPress. There's a new version, hot diggity dog. You would worry about creating posts, which are more dynamic articles that would be on your website, or you create pages that are more static. So it could be things like your CV or an about page or the courses that you're teaching and that kind of thing. But we're done. We've just installed WordPress, and aside from all the words and descriptions that I used that interrupted the process, it takes about 90 seconds for you to install WordPress. Now the work begins to kind of create that site. If we want to take a look at what it looks like from, as a newborn, here's what it would look like when you go to that web address. So you get this hello world post, talks a little bit about what you can do, points you in the right direction. Hopefully, when you're logged into your site, you see this black bar that gives you the ability to go back and forth between the website and the dashboard, etc. Okay, so that's the demo, and I guess it worked okay because we were able to install WordPress without too much trouble. You might look at this WordPress site and say, oh, this isn't very exciting and it looks kind of dull and boring. There are thousands of themes that can be used to make it look prettier and work better. So what I want to do next is kind of give you some of the advantages of why you would publish on Faculty Domains. It's the who, what, where, when, but mostly why of faculty publishing on their own domains. Okay, and so what we're going to do is, well, first, this is me. I'm available at andyrush.com among many other domains that I have. But you probably know this quote: if a tree falls in a forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? And so I like to paraphrase that quote and just say, if faculty don't publish their work on the open web, will anyone hear it? And that's the point of doing this. So the open web is kind of, it's the thing that allows us the freedom to kind of carve out our own space and not have to rely on companies and vendors. Other than the web server companies, everybody has to rely on them to some extent. But there's no gatekeeper to allow you to publish what you need to on your site. You're the authority for your own website. Okay. The domain of one's own system came out of the idea of Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own, and where she talked about this is a place where you have all to yourself to publish and to write and to think and reflect and that kind of thing. We're all familiar with what we call the walled gardens that are out there. Specifically, we can talk about something like Canvas, where it's a place where everybody's doing all this great work and there's teaching and learning and all this kind of stuff going on, but no one can view what's happening in that walled garden. There's lots of great stuff going on, but there's a wall that prevents most people from seeing it. So what are the keys to what we want to do with something like Faculty Domains and Domain of One's Own? What it does is it provides what we call a community of practice. It's a place where folks can work on this stuff all at the same time and then start comparing notes. what did you do on your website? How did you do that? Oh, I'd like to try that on my site. And oh, I tried this, you might want to try that. So it's a way to kind of communicate those ideas. It also allows you to take ownership of the content. And also, when you need to, if you need to work with students, you can give access to students or other staff or faculty members. It also is going to have a digital literacy component where you're going to learn about some of the stuff that makes the web work. It will reduce commercialism. You don't have to worry about having ads on your website unless you want to, but that may be against the policy. So beware of that. But also vendors, there's all kinds of vendors that provide educational solutions. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Most of the time, they're certainly not perfect. So you can reduce some of that. There's also the ability to kind of do cross-disciplinary stuff, multi-level, multi-layered kind of communities with different constituents on a university campus and off campus as well. And then also include students in terms of interacting and participating in building what you're doing, building scholarship, allowing students to get their voices heard out there. And then students and faculty can make and create something that the world and the globe can see. Okay, so it's this bridge, and we're hoping it's this bridge. It's become a bridge between faculty and students. We're still building those connections. Right now, students don't have the ability to publish on their own, other than like WordPress.com or other spaces. In some cases, we allow faculty to write on, we will allow students who are in a course write on a page that a faculty creates, so that you kind of have this this record of the writings of a particular course that can be shared with the world. So we're getting there, but the bridge isn't complete yet, right? And again, we talked about faculty domains as being the place where you go to sign up. It used to be the way that we would build a website, and we used to have this thing called the Osprey server, and it was a place where you'd go and you'd build your sites, and there were various tools that were used, but behind all of it is the stuff called HTML, and that stuff in the white text there behind the geeky guy that you see with the funny glasses is HTML, and it's the code that makes the web work. It's one of the components anyway, but it's the major kind of text component that makes a web page appear. Okay. What we've got is something like WordPress. So here's just 4 examples of websites that faculty created. First we have the Dolphin Research with Quincy Gibson in the upper left-hand corner. Study Abroad website with Andrew Kozlowski. We have a podcast site that Mary Trey's. She's got podcasts and people that she interviews, and that's a podcast site that's available. I got to get one published shortly because she just recorded another one this week. And then also, we've mentioned this before, David Courtwright's website. Here's an example of what's an Ameka website, which is another tool that's available. It's kind of like a way to catalog digital artifacts. It's very popular among librarians in general, maybe, but also digital librarians who are kind of creating these artifact and almost museum-like sites where you can catalog things and search terms are more standardized and that kind of thing. And again, here's David's site, and it's got all the capabilities where you can see reviews of his books and articles and videos and other contexts that he's made, or other things that he's made in terms of his website. So we want you to kind of be in it, and it's a term that might strike fear in some, but we want you to be the system administrator, kind of in quotes, I guess, of your scholarship. So you're in charge of it. We want you to be a teacher, a learner, a maker, and a remixer, which means taking all these tools and kind of making it your own. Okay. And just some of the resources that we have. Again, you can see some of these slides at andyrush.com/slides. EDUCause wrote a nice article about 7 things about domain of one's own and the home, and that's kind of it.